Live on YouTube. Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to this week's energy update. We are just gonna get all of the platforms hooked up so that our Healers Rising members can find us where they need to be. But if you guys are here, please say hello in the comments. Let us know that you can actually hear me, because there's nothing worse than me sitting here for the next hour thinking I am giving you guys all this amazing insight and finding out I was on mute. That's always the best. Hey, bye. Okay, and come join us here. Peace. Send an invite. Cool beans. So first and foremost, I apologize if my sound is really echoey. Did it get any better, Violet? I brought some soft things into the room.
Not so much, like maybe a little bit, but
good as it's gonna get. We just moved into our new house and we've been here 2 nights now, and I just assembled an IKEA desk in under 45 minutes, which is uber impressive, I think. Maybe if this setting, let's try that. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's try that. Yeah, we just assembled our IKEA desk in like under an hour so that I didn't have to be on the floor to work tonight, and away we go. Don't promise anything about the internet either, because we have just a really quick fixed satellite setup. So if it is a gong show, I apologize in advance, but we will try our best to stay connected and keep you guys in the loop about everything we're going to go through. All right, lots of our friends are here. Yay, they hear us loud and clear. Sarah's on a road trip. That is record time, Ashley, for IKEA. Seriously, Anne, my husband and I didn't argue once.
That's impressive. I've heard that IKEA is like a marriage ender.
It is a marriage breaker for some people, but I remember like, oh God, this was 13 years ago now. Steve came out to my farm for the first time, and I had just bought an entire IKEA office suite. And he looked at all the boxes on the floor and he did his like man thing where he's like, oh, this girl I want to impress. And he just got to work assembling all the IKEA with me. And I knew from that moment on, everything was going to be great.
Nice.
Okay, well, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about today, some of which include being in the right place at the right time, talking about releasing dreams, ideas, releasing old thought patterning, and then limited thinking and what our brain does when we are under stress. Because in this last week, I've watched so many people who are usually incredible manifestors, who are really talented at getting through anything. And not only that, but like learning how to thrive, go and shut themselves down because 1 or 2 or 3 bad things stacked on top of one another. And then all of a sudden their body and their hormones have taken over. And now they're in a position where they can't even think. They're not in their creator self. They're in this limited fear-based thinking, which doesn't ask great questions, which doesn't see possibility, and forgets to communicate in a way that's actually supportive of something that would actually lead them in a direction of expansion and abundance, or support whatever that thing may be. And I've been seeing that a lot in the last week and a half.
I mean, it happens a lot anyway, but it's interesting that there's a new pattern coming up about it right now.
There is. And it's interesting because the people I've called out on it, I'm like, whoa, hold on a sec. Is what you're saying to me actually what you want? So this is the sentence I'm using to like actually just bump it into their fields and be like, well, what you're saying and what your energy field is doing don't match here. So I'm just going to bump your words back into your field so you can hear it and see what you want to do with it. And for the great majority of them, that's not actually what they want. It's just that primal part of the survival brain has taken over, and it said, put the blinders on, don't see anything else, shut down all the creator possibilities. I just need to survive. And that's a scary place to be, actually, when you're doing all this intuitive and manifestation work, because when we're in that shutdown state, we are not actually on our axis. We're not aligned. We are not seated really soul fully in this body. We don't have all of our dimensional lenses firing, which means that we're missing information. We're misreading situations. We're not seeing possibilities that are actually there, and we're not actually aligning with what it is we actually want.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And a lot of these people are like people who know how to generally deal with triggers or things that come up their way.
Mhm.
Is there like a commonality that you're seeing with like where that's coming from?
Yes and no. In like a good handful of them, a lot of them have had things just come out of the blue since Mercury retrograde started,
Mm,
like car accidents, things breaking down, money bills getting hit at them, like just it's like compounding pieces that they just feel like they're drowning and they can't handle anymore. And instead of putting them all in like a chart and boxes and looking at the big picture, they just go, why don't I stuff this all on top of me and lie under this big puddle, right?
yeah.
So yeah, there's some of them that are getting hit with that. There is another handful that I'm hesitant to label it as being a specific collective or a specific type of psychic attack or anything
There
like
is
that.
something though, isn't there? There's something more
Yeah,
like bigger scale that people are tapping into and making it mean something. I was picking up
100%.
on it this morning. I was like, what is this? And I couldn't really track
Yeah.
it, but I was like, there's something coming in that it just feels like a lot of people are just picking it up or, like resonating with it. And it's hitting those resonance fields.
It is. So there's this piece where it's like, it's kind of like the savior martyr loop is getting hit, whatever this thing, this field, this attack, whatever this is. And so it's like people are getting this thread of information that could be somewhat accurate. And then it's like getting taken way off the deep end to the point where it's no longer relevant. And now it's being misread. And I think we could actually go back 2 weekends ago when you and I were at the retreat because I was working with a client there who had been accelerated way too fast by a very, very well-known person in the industry to the point where this person was experiencing like epileptic type seizures, like losing control of body, having paranoia type thoughts, going into like deep trance states and not even being able to take themselves out. And I'm seeing people getting to the verge of that on their own now, even, and they're getting into these euphoric visions. Like some people are explaining to me, they're starting to get like kaleidoscope type vision, which can be a type of ocular migraine too, which get your craniosacral adjusted, you guys, because that's usually what's the problem. But they are getting this kaleidoscope type vision and then they're trancing off into things, but they're getting hit with these massive waves of emotion and these stories that are so big that there is not even a way that that person on their own could handle that kind of information that they're being given, let alone do anything with it.
We were talking about this in last week's energy update about this being a potential, because I got that kind of like little nudge last Monday where it was like, this is something that might be happening more and more like over the next few weeks, where people are going to be getting these like prophetic messages, dreams, visions, information of that sort. And we have to be really super duper discerning about what we're seeing and what we're believing.
Yeah. And that's the problem, is like there is a thread of truth that story gets built up on. But if you stay in that frequency too long, because it does feel good when you first go into it, that's when all of this other data starts coming in and riding this energy current, and all of these distortions start happening. And, I don't think it's something we need to be scared of. I think it's just something we need to be aware of and just really watching and monitoring how deep we're going into those types of states. And this would definitely be a time where I would say I would not be using, I mean, I don't condone it anyways, but I would not be using any sort of psilocybins or anything that is like marijuana or weed, anything you're using to try and get into deeper level trance states, like plant medicines, not a chance in hell. Like the frequencies right now that are happening, it's just waiting for bodies to be somewhat unoccupied, which happens when we use those types of substances, even mass amounts of caffeine or sugar. Okay, those are other things that can do it. It's just waiting for you to somewhat vacate to come in on those 6th, 7th, and 8th dimensional lenses, so that it's like, bam, a body. right? Starts implanting all this
This
stuff.
must be like partially why I've just had zero interest in doing any kind of explorations in that way. I'm like, nope, I just want to do very human level stuff right now. Everything is just like clean up, organize, foundations, my house, food, that kind of stuff, like super basic. I'm like zero interest in doing anything exploration wise.
Yeah, and the irony is that right now everybody's talking about being in this eclipse season and we're in between these portals. I mean, we just had the full moon last night. Yeah, last night going into this morning. And everybody's talking about how this is such an amazing time to be into that kind of frequency. And I'm over here like, did you guys actually even track into that? Or are you just regurgitating what everybody says every single eclipse season? Because it doesn't
that's what
feel like that.
That's what these collectives use, is these like narratives that people just just say over and over again and pass around. It's like, because we heard 5 different people on the internet say that it's a good time to be, expanding our consciousness, that it must mean it's true. And then they just kind of like wait for everyone to just blindly plug into stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, my go-to is usually, if majority of people are going in that direction, there's probably a reason not to. Like, let's try going in a different one.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't think it's a time where we need to like check out or be 100%, human body stuff. Like, I think you still can be playing in these things. I think you just have to do it with a really, really, really heavy hand of discernment as you go through, and make sure that, as soon as the piece that feels like the message is done, you're not fighting to keep pulling data through, because it's probably going to start getting distorted in most cases. Anyways, enough on that conversation. So the other one I wanted to talk about is this thing I'm seeing in so many people right now of limited thinking. And this one just boggles my brain. And maybe it's just because this is how I'm wired. I don't know. So I just want to say that as a caveat. My brain, like the way my soul looks at anything in front of me is, ooh, what am I going to do with this?
So, what's interesting? I actually saw a little TikTok on this, and I think it was Mel Robbins. I believe it was her. I watched a few, so I could be mixing things up, but she was saying this thing about how there are some people who are really like oriented towards action. So that's kind of like their go-to, and whatever information is coming through, they deal with it. Like their go-to is just to like put it into action and to make something happen of it. But majority of people are more oriented towards thinking. So that would be, I would say, the difference between you and me, or you and most people here. So while most people will get information and they'll think about it a whole bunch, and they'll think about it some more, and then they'll get more information and add that to their thinking pot, you're like, no, I don't need to keep thinking about this. I just need to do it. But I don't think most people are oriented that way. So it takes a little bit of practice.
It does take practice. And I think that one of the things we need to consider is, if that's how you've been operating for the great majority of your life and you're not where you need to be, that maybe we might want to try on a new style of doing a little less analytics and a little more application, and seeing how quickly things shift. Because this last week alone, I've heard so many people tell me, oh, I can't do that, it's too expensive. And this is just in regards to anything. We did a very human thing yesterday. We went to my husband's grandmother's Easter do-over. So the entire family was there for the first time in 2 years.
We got together with family this weekend too. It was really nice.
Yeah, I loved it. I was just sitting back watching everything. But so Steve's one uncle, he's a contractor, and he builds very expensive homes, like for people that are putting in like 11,000 square foot things and basketball courts and bowling ball alleys in their homes, like custom builder. Anyways, He's talking about this pool that's going into his client's house. That's like a 80-foot lap pool. And he goes, oh yeah, it's like $250,000. Like, who in their right mind does that? And I'm like, so we're thinking about putting.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds actually kind of cool.
I know. And so I said that, I added it to the conversation. I said, you know what? I think if you were going to get that much enjoyment out of it year after year, like that would be an amazing investment. And his whole family just like turned and looked at me like, are you nuts? And I'm like, whatever, it's just money. You can make more. And they all, you should have seen their faces, you guys. Like everybody's jaws were just like, what? no, you're limited. You only make this much. You go to work, you do whatever you're going to do. And I'm like, no. That's not how the universe works. You get a dream and an idea, you add it to your energy field and you see how it expands. And if your field expands, the money will arrive to you and you will tear up to the next thing you're about to do. And then you will have more money.
As long as you follow it.
As long as you follow it. Like it's literally textbook. Every person that has actually followed this recipe that I've showed this to and who lives it and promises themselves this pulls themselves into that level of abundance. It's like clockwork. It's amazing.
It's so funny that he like works with people who have all that money and can just create anything they want.
But judges the bananas out of them.
And right? He's just being so limited.
Yeah. So then I was kind of sharing about how I want to build up some of the things here on our new place and the types of things we want to do. And everybody's like, oh, that's so expensive. Have you seen the economy? How can you guys afford that with gas prices? And I'm like, you guys are so weird. But then I realized that this is how the majority of people think, you know, and maybe some of you guys that are listening right now are triggered by this because maybe this is how you see the world around you. And you go, well, it's this much, so I can't. Whereas I see it as it's this much. So how am I going to call that into me?
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is like, and you know this about my partner, Daryl, he's taken a little bit of work to get him into this like not so limited mindset, especially with money too. But so we went to Costco on the weekend and you know how much you can spend at Costco, right?
You already did that trip.
Right. Yeah. So we spent like $1,000 at Costco, one full, like our cart was overflowing, but it was just one cart, $1,000. And he was like, oh my God, like, you know, a year ago, this would have only cost us like $650, not $900. And then it just took him a minute. And then he was like, whatever, we have money now. He's like, yes. Okay. And he just got so much joy, like spending all that money. Like we bought like a sound bar for our TV and stuff. And he just had a lot of fun picking it out. And I was like, you're so funny.
Yeah. Chirplet, what's your real name? Chirplet said, do you find that people often judge or reject things that they secretly desire for themselves all the time?
All the time.
Because it's much easier to reject it or judge it, to tell yourself that it's a good idea to keep rejecting and judging it. Right.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like we make it mean something if there's like this small possibility that we might not get it. And so we're so afraid of what that means about us that we won't even try.
Yeah. But I mean, Steve and I even did that. We did that, Violet, with some of the properties we bid on for Retreat Center. We
all do it.
We aimed for the stars, you know, and we were like, whatever, if we can't pull it off, the next thing will show up. But at least if I'm willing to ask, the thing that I actually desire and actually require is going to show up to me. Right? As if by magic. So, you know, I think that also people tend to judge or reject things when they are seeing something that they are actually envious of. Not jealous, but envious of, meaning that they actually have that creator ability to line up with it, because otherwise they wouldn't have a trigger to it. Right. And if they have the ability to line up to it and bring it into their reality, and they're seeing somebody else do that ahead of them, it can really rock their world, because that pressure, that energy starts bumping up into their field and going, hey, are you coming? Hey, do you want this? Hey, right. It starts asking them to dream bigger, ask more, like do things differently. And for most people, they're like, right. Don't want to hear soul. Don't want to listen to myself, all those fun things.
It's like we take that, well, and the trigger, like a trigger is really just a catalyst moment. That's all it is like an invitation to do something differently. And so people, it's like they take that trigger of soul being like, hey, you can have this too. Now's a really great time to start, as this like pressure to like perform a certain way. Yeah, it's interesting. And then on top of that, we've got like what we think other people are going to think about us if we have that, if we follow it.
Which is, you know, can I just like ask you guys a question? Let me know in the comments here.
Just do it.
When you guys see somebody who gives no shits about what other people think about them, how do you typically feel about that person? Because in my reality, what I have seen, not only for myself, but majority of the people that are around me that, you know, also look to these people, they see these people that don't take judgments and keep doing them. And they're like, man, I want that.
Yeah.
I wish
it was like that.
Yeah. Right. And the funny thing is, majority of these people, end up getting all the things in life they want to have, because they don't let outside opinions take them down, right? They are so dialed into their own internal radar and what they desire, whether that's good or bad, right or wrong, whether we think that is actually a thing that we should lust after or not. But they're so dialed into their internal radar, and they're so busy being master manifestors and creators and owning their energy field that they don't bother with what other people are saying or not saying they should do.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that's a beautiful thing. And, I aspire to be like that 98% of the time.
Me too.
The only time I am worried about judgments is when I get tired. And then sometimes I will let the emotion field hit me a little bit. And it takes me a second. And I'm like, wait a second, I actually don't give two flying banana farts about this. Unplug, back on where I'm going, right?
Yeah. Totally.
So if that's something you guys love it, or you're envious of it, it means you have the ability to line up with it and be it. So why aren't you doing it? I'm going to give you the challenge this week to be that person. All of you guys that are listening to that, just be that person.
Yeah. Ooh, let's just try that on. Like, what would it feel like this week? Just this week. You don't have to commit to it forever, but just this week, living from a state of, I actually don't need to take on the projections of other people, and I just don't care what they think. I'm just going to do what I want to do regardless.
Yeah.
See what happens and report back. I want to know how it goes.
I do too. I'm really interested to see, especially those of you guys that have been yes people for other people, not to yourself. I'm really interested to see how this hits you, because for some of you, you might start bringing up all this internal dialogue about, not being enough, or feeling like you're letting others down, or being a disappointment, or not being there for people that you should be there for. And so that's going to give you really great ammunition for your clearing work, and to dive in there and use those different tools, like all of the emotional release and your clearing statements, even working on cords and contracts. And you might even have to get into those Akashic records and do some collapse work to get that done. I believe those of you guys that are in HRA and have the Akashics course, it's week 6 that has the majority of the data you need, and then the ancestral clearing, and then of course weeks 1, 2, and 3 in the foundations all have the pieces you guys need for those tools to pull this all apart. And I think the other thing is too, we're in this really beautiful time here in 2022 where we really do need to start looking at who do I want to be, and how do I want to start shaping the world and the generation that's going to come after me. Because if we spend our entire energy worrying about the external forces that are trying to shape and dictate what formula our babies can have, and what farmland you can and can't buy, and whether you can have a gas vehicle or an electric vehicle, if we spend our time obsessing over that stuff, and we come out of that space of self-mastery, and we come into aligning with somebody else's mission that doesn't necessarily feel light and right, we're going to lose ourselves in that process, And so I think now more than ever, that invitation to give two whats about everybody else's judgments and opinions, and to come back to you, I think now is the time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. I want to share a little bit about my move.
Yeah.
Which was a friggin' gong show.
It was so dramatic. Oh my God. Just hearing the commentary from you about all the things that were going wrong and what was happening and everything. I was just eating popcorn, watching it. I was like, oh my God, this is so dramatic. It's like a TV show.
Yeah. So, just because something is right and doesn't necessarily, it's going to be smooth or easy.
Yeah.
That's rule number 1. A lot of people will line up with something, and as soon as things get a little stressful or they don't go 100% right, they'll start an internal dialogue going, oh, this must not be the right thing. I must have made a mistake. Everything's falling apart. The universe isn't lining up easily, all of those kinds of stories. And that's not always the case. Sometimes there are little roadblocks that come up that don't actually have to do with you. You're just a participant in somebody else's game.
Yep.
Sometimes you overload your RV to travel it one province to another, and it's going to be a little bit of a gong show. And sometimes, you are going to need to surface some stuff that is underneath everything you thought you were thinking and feeling to get it all up and out to have you ready to land where you're about to go.
Yeah.
And so, funny story, the people buying our house in BC tried to back out
at the last minute, like the day before, basically.
Day before they were supposed to sign. They were like, after the realtors, after the lawyers, they were trying to say that we breached on the contract, except they signed an unconditional contract. So anybody that's in real estate, it means like you can't back out of it. You said you want the house, cash offer, here you go.
I thought it was so crazy when they did that in the first place. I was like, wow, these guys, okay.
Yeah.
Do you?
I know. Bananas. So anyways, they were trying to say we breached and that they weren't going to have beach access at the house. So we should let them out of the contract the day before we're supposed to leave. And that we should also, if they had to follow through, because we put our foot down, and I just said, no, you guys back out. I'm going to gun after you. I'm going to lock you up in court, and I'm going to keep your money. And then I'm going to sue you for all the things that are going to come after, including what's going to happen if you stop what I'm about to do with my business.
Yeah.
So that shut them the F up. I can bark when I need to, man. Like, mama's got a mouth on her. Anyways, and I had a really great lawyer, thankfully. And so they stopped that dialogue. And then they came back and they're like, well, we're not going to have beach access. So you guys need to give us $100,000 off 24 hours before close. I feel like this person's a scammer. We're just gonna remove them from the channel. 1 second, please.
There's a couple.
Yeah. Joys of YouTube. There we go. Okay. And anyways, so we ended up having to be on the phone with lawyers for like hours on the day I'm supposed to be finishing packing up, like stressed AF, doing all these things. And I'm like, and Steve, my husband, he comes up and he's like, maybe we should have done my idea and blah, 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 blah. And I just looked at him and I was like, shut the up.
You're not playing that game.
I was like,
try again.
We're not playing that game. Nope. We are already aligned to this trajectory, which means now we ask questions and we look for possibilities, right? We start looking for how this is going to go. On top of that, what was really interesting is all of our contracts from BC that had to be signed in front of the lawyer were supposed to be couriered overnight on Tuesday night to get there Wednesday for our lawyers in Alberta. They didn't arrive until 10 minutes before closing time on Friday. Like, we didn't even know if we were going to get our house key release, any of these things. Like, it was just a gong show. And so in my husband's field, he got really stressed. He was bringing up all these stories. He went into limited thinking. He started going into the, well, we should have, all of that retrospective kind of conversation.
And maybe this means that what we
exactly.
weren't supposed to go down this route. Yeah.
Right. And it's like he was trying to use that as ammunition to create a story. And I just looked at him and I'm like, is that the story you want to create right now? And he kind of looked at me, he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, back to packing. I've got this. I will deal with the lawyers. I will stay on the phone calls. It's all going to work out. And the worst case scenario is we have the key to your sister's house. Like, that's the worst case scenario. We will just bomb in there, whatever. And in this whole process, I really started to check in and I was like, why is this occurring? Is it even about me?
Yeah.
That was the most interesting question I asked. And I wish you guys would all install that into your toolbox. And that question for my house in BC, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me at all. It was about the people buying the house and their experience and the things they were working through. I was just a participant in their activity and what they were there to learn and follow through on.
So they were just like projecting all of their own stuff outwards, and
yes,
you guys were involved.
And they needed another party involved.
Yeah.
based on the story. And so I actually didn't need to get all riled up and be highly involved in it. I just had to witness it and have like my micro feelings, because I'm like, this is a mild inconvenience, and then let it go. Right. Moving over here, like to Steve's reaction, I looked at this and I was like, is this even about me? And the answer to that one was, yeah, a little bit. And the yeah, a little bit was, sometimes when we make these kind of moves, you guys, especially when you're in relationships, you and your partner will have multiple stories, multiple timelines you've already walked through before. And when you make these changes, I was like the NPC, Ashley, exactly. When you make these changes, sometimes it's going to lift Akashic records from this life or past life. It's going to lift memories or triggers or traumas, certain stories, certain things is going to make you or your partner react a certain way in these situations. And actually what came up through this whole thing was an opportunity for us to have a discussion in releasing some of the things that occurred when we had a farm prior to this.
Okay.
Right. And it wasn't me that was holding on to this stuff now, but I needed to be the sacred witness and hold space. And I needed to be in that, I guess, receiver space for Steve to actually kind of share some of the things that were coming up for him in that story and be there for him.
Well, and it makes sense that it was coming up because you guys are moving right back to the same area, basically, that you had that farm and all of that went down.
Yeah. So I think that we have to be very mindful when we go through all of these different transitions, all of these different stories that are going on, because it's not always about you, but we're so quick to blame ourselves, to go down into those negative thinking spirals, to get locked into all of those different energies and emotions and get into the drama of it, that if we're not careful, we can end up going down a spiral and creating records and things that actually aren't ours to create. And then we find ourselves in a whole new puddle of clearing that has to occur that didn't need to be there in the first place.
Yeah, we don't need to be making decisions from a triggered state.
Sure don't. Okay. Jess, thank you. Very sweet. Yeah, it's super fun. We are, living kind of bare minimum in the house, which is fun. We packed our RV, like you couldn't even walk in the door anymore. It was way overweight. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have, but we did. And my kids are loving it out here. It was really interesting because we got in late, like 10:30 on Friday night, and my kids got out of the cars and they were both asleep and they both stepped on the land, and I watched their eyes just go wide and they instantly went into running around and playing in the dark and looping through all the trees. The dogs are with them and they've been outside majority of their days since we got here. My son came up to me, and this is interesting. Mm-hmm. My son came up to me and he said, yeah, Mom, I don't know what it is about this house, but I don't like technology anymore. Now I like being outside playing and I like hanging out with the animals. I'm like, and then his next statement is, and where's my knife? He wanted his whittling knife to go and start carving trees. And he's been like addicted to his devices.
Yeah.
And so this is the next conversation I want to have today. And we can wrap with this one, I think, Vi. I want to talk about being in the right place at the right time and how your body will respond when you're where you need to be. When you are fighting energy where you live, you will feel stagnant, like you can't quite move, like everything around you is existing. Maybe it's okay, maybe it's stressful, but it's never like a high. And you won't feel inspired to be in that creator mode. And it's not necessarily that the home or the city or those things are wrong. It could be what you're surrounding yourself with. It could be that you haven't cleared your environment. It could be any of those things. But for me, we went and we tried on an environment. It wasn't working. I actually put on weight, even though I was more active and working out where we lived. I had a couple of pairs of pants I wasn't able to put on for the last couple of months. And within 5 days of being here, I can get them back on. 3 days. Actually. And I'm like, what the heck is that? It doesn't make logical sense at all. because your body shouldn't be able to do that rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes we are planted where we are out of convenience or out of habit, or, maybe because we think we can't move, or maybe because we have stories holding us in place for whatever reason, or maybe because there's pride involved in it, or shame if we let something go, or that if we make these changes, it's going to rock our reality so strong, whatever, that, we tell ourselves we can't make these moves. But it's really interesting once you do it, whether it's cleaning your house, getting rid of the furniture you don't like, whether it's saging your property, Violet's going to build a deck, whatever it is. Once you're in the right place, in the right time, everything in your body will also follow suit, because your environment is a mirror. Always. What you're choosing to sit in is what's going to refract up to you. And I was living in my opinion, one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Like, we had incredible views of Lake Okanagan. We had the mountains, like the trees around us were gorgeous. It was a beautiful neighborhood, although I call it the Napanogan out there because there's a lot of people that are out there and retired. It was gorgeous. And so logic would dictate that because I was surrounded by that kind of nature, I should feel really good. And I had gratitude for the views, but I never had gratitude for how I felt, because I never felt good. And it was interesting because just being back here, like, my sleep has corrected, my body is responding to being in this energy. And so I just wanted to plant that seed for you guys to just consider, like, if you're not making those changes for yourself, and again, it can be micro. I'm not telling you have to move a whole province or you have to sell your house or any of these things. It really could be that you just need to clean. You need to paint that room. You need to design it the way you want to. You need to update that wardrobe, or maybe it is you need to move. But if you are feeling like you are dragging ass and you just can't get anything moving, and you're doing the meditations and you're doing the emotional release work and you've worked in your Akashic records and nothing else seems to be shifting, we need to start looking at, am I in the vortex that my body needs to thrive? Right? And a good way to try that on is to travel, even if it's just a road trip, to some of the different places, and see, where do I come alive? Where do I wake up? Where do I feel really, really good? Because that'll start giving you guys some clues about what your soul, what your body actually requires to amplify your field and help you thrive with the mission and purpose you came here to be aligned with. Anyways, that's my little story.
I mean, the decisions that we make are basically fighting for something. So why not fight for something that actually feels good?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Exactly. Right? Might as well. Yeah. Cool. All right, you guys. We have a class we have to teach right away. When can I bring my children? Listen, one day I've been sitting out in the field every morning and every evening and just like starting to visualize where I want to put everything. We found so many cool surprises when we got here that I didn't know were here.
Really?
I already knew there was a garden.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that it already had mature raspberry, blueberry, gooseberry, Saskatoons, lilacs, apple trees, plum, and pear, all on property that are all already producing. The lady left me instructions for all of the plants. She's like, and these ones like this, and this area waters like out all the time. Like, so it was so great. The house already has, oh, you guys, I mean, my hair is messy today because we've been out and about. We were like sitting on tractors and buying fence posts and like doing all those farm people things. But the house already has a dechlorinization and fluoridization system in it. So all of our water that's coming in is now clean. There's no toxins. There's no chemicals in it. I can already feel it in my body, and like my hair is so soft. I wish you guys could pet it. Is that creepy? Maybe that's creepy, but I wish you could pet it because my hair is like the softest it's ever been. I didn't even condition it because the water just is like amazing. Yeah. And then we're just finding like lots of cool little things within the house itself, which has been phenomenal. So anyways, I've been out visualizing the land and looking at where we're going to put the domes up and where we're going to build the facility for doing workshops and retreats and a little bit of like animal communication and facilitator training, and where we'll eventually do the decodes workshops. Been looking at like where I want to put fences and where I don't want to put fences because I like the open space, where I'm going to put my bougie chicken coop. Like, so I've just been like meditating with the land and sitting out there and really feeling it, which is helping with that whole process. Yeah. And so that's something I could tell you guys to do too, whether you're moving to a new place or you're in the land that you're on, go outside of the walls. You know, you're just pretend you're sunbathing or something so that your neighbors only think you're half weird. But go sit on your front lawn and go into a bit of like daydreaming with your properties, right? And ask what it requires, what it desires. Ask it to show you what the energy channels are on the property and where things need to line up for everything to feel in flow. Because when you can map to what the vortex and the land that you're on desires, the property will feel so harmonic that everybody who walks in it will just go. But when we just go because logic, or because we're like, oh, this is what said it needed to happen because this is what the Joneses have, you can interrupt those different channels, right? So that's a really cool thing you can do. Oh, Jenna, happy birthday. That's awesome. Yeah, so that's a little thing you guys can do, is just go outside, meditate with your space. Like Violet, you guys are considering putting in your little deck. Like I would go in your backyard and I would ask, you know, what shape does this need to be? How does it need to look?
Yeah, I will definitely go do that. I'm pretty sure we already had this conversation though, because I could see it in my head, and Daryl got the same one, and we were having the conversation when we were out in the yard. So
yeah. Right. And those projections will come up from the land too, right? So when those ideas pop up for you guys, it's important to start listening and going, okay, interesting. Yeah, we'll follow that. Right? Mm-hmm. Good.
So fun.
Did you have anything else on your radar that you wanted to share for today, Vi?
Not really. There's a couple of things that are like percolating, but I feel like they might be next week content. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. There might be a podcast episode coming out this week. We'll see. Yeah. All right. Okay, you guys, well, we will keep you updated. Those of you guys that are in the Alberta area, if you guys want to come in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a Raise the Dome party. So you guys can come over and we're going to build the deck for one of the geodesic domes and put it up as a little circle. And then Violet's going to come out. We're going to go to HomeSense and go get stuff so we can like make it all boho chic meditation room. Be so fun.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put a little bit of my flair on it to make myself feel better about the fact that you're gone. I'm all alone.
I'd love to say I'm sad, and this sounds so jerk facey, but like I'm so happy, but also I miss you, but also I'm happy. Like I know it was the right thing for us, but I'm like, I'll just buy Violet a house. It'll be fine.
No, I'm super happy for you too. It's a weird place to be in because I'm equally sad. Like I said, I think I told you this already. I'm like, I'm as happy for you as I am sad that you're gone.
I know. It's ridiculous. And it's so stupid because like, well, Violet and Haley were both at the retreat last weekend. We were all
much fun.
Oh, let's do it again. Like, honestly. Where did we get our domes from? I don't know. My husband ordered them on the internet last year or something. Yeah. All I know is they came in a big shipping freight from overseas and arrived, and I had to haul their 6,000 pound asses up my very steep driveway by hand. And then I had to roll them down because the pod can't go at the top of the driveway to get them back in the shipping pod.
At least it was down on the way back. That's nice.
It didn't help. They're not round. Anyways. Yeah, I know we're planning on maybe building another retreat out for this summer. So if anybody is kind of like, yeah, I want to go on one of those, let us know. Jasper or Banff. Where would you guys rather go?
I'm like, oh, do we have to pick?
We do have to pick.
Dang it. Okay, well, we'll see what the majority of people choose, and that's where we'll go.
Yes, Banff. We'll put it up in HRA. We'll do a little poll and then we'll see what we can do. Oh, Jay is watching from their toilet. That's cool. Face crapping, you know, that's a thing. People do that. a lot.
That's really, really dirty. I'm sorry.
No, you scroll Facebook.
I know, but if you don't
Get your
have the
mind
face,
out of the gutter.
you don't have the face part of it, it's like, okay.
You're the worst.
Anyway, we should probably go.
Okay, we have a class to teach. So anyways, there you go. There's some things for you guys to chew on for the week. We will be back next Monday, always with a new conversation and ridiculous things that fall out of our mouth. If you guys are new to the channel, say hello. Let us know that you guys are watching for the first time. Violet and I are just these like chicks next door that do this energy healing thing and help a lot of people doing it. And yeah, we'll see you guys next Monday.